There really isn't such thing as little autistic. You could be a little OCD. You could be a little antisocial, but autism is a weird, kind of a weird thing. Yeah, it should. There should be no doubt. There's no treatment, unfortunately. I tried to make one of the first treatments ever for autism. Autism is a spectrum of severity and a spectrum of symptoms, but it's not. Every disease has a spectrum of severity. You can have mild asthma, you can have moderate asthma, or you can have severe asthma. You guys need paint. You ready for paint? Ready for another paint day? All right. We gotta clip this and we gotta put on TikTok and Instagram and stuff because this is important. All right. Let's talk about autism. Your favorite subject. You love calling people autists, don't you? Okay. Here's the reality. None of you guys are autistic. None of your friends are autistic. When you use that word, you're making a big mistake because autism is a specific thing. Now, we use the term ASD sometimes. That's autism spectrum disorder. And this word spectrum is a doozy. This gets people really confused. They think about maybe a rainbow and the Roy G. Biv colors of rainbow, or red, orange, yellow, etc. Um, the reality is there's three diagnostic criteria for autism. You have to meet all three to meet the diagnostic criteria, and that's why this is a spectrum of symptoms. Okay, there's also a spectrum of severity. So people like to say you're on the spectrum. That doesn't make any sense. We say this because like we think about you know um, red is on the spectrum. But if you just have one of these symptoms, you don't have autism spectrum disorder. The spectrum is a similar word to syndrome, which is a number of different symptoms. So it's a misnomer, and I think people like to, especially parents, like the idea of having a saying on the spectrum because it mollifies a bit the nature of the illness, and this is no doubt about it, an illness. And it's not something you want. It's not something you want to be proud of. There's a lot of people that suffer from this illness. They want treatment. It's a severe thing. It's a serious thing. So it's pretty sad to hear people get it so wrong. So what are the three symptoms of autism? You have to have all three. Okay. The first is social interaction. Okay. So what does that mean? I'm just going to write social here. So when it comes to social understanding and friendship and stuff like that, it's very hard to form bonds. Things like understanding context. Now, there are people that do this. This is kind of the hardest symptom of all these to understand. And I think there are people that don't necessarily understand social cues and things like that. But in a lot of ways, like these people are loners. Fairly antisocial, really difficult understanding social cues. This is like the most mysterious symptom. So I could understand people not really getting this. But I think, understanding those social cues is, difficult, and making friendships, making relationships is kind of very challenging for people with autism. Intimacy is extremely challenging, for example. So that's kind of the most sort of difficult symptom to understand. We just get it out of the way first, and we'll get back to it in a second to analyze it further. But the two and three are pretty unambiguous. So the second is communication, and it's almost impossible for people with autism to communicate clearly. In fact, many people with autism are completely mute, and most people with autism don't can't speak like the way I'm speaking, like a motor mouth. So anybody with severe communication deficits could be a candidate for autism, provided the other two apply. So again, people with complete lack of social understanding, like a serious impairment of an ability to make bonds and friendships, complete understanding of the so-called RMET test. If you want to do this test, it's called the reading of the mind of the eyes test. And RMET is an interesting test where you have to look at these eyes and decide which emotion is this. Okay? What do you think? Is this person apologetic, friendly, uneasy, or dispirited? This is tough. This is hard, right? This eyebrow kind of makes me feel one way, that maybe they're uneasy. But I also can see friendly. This one's tricky. See? Do you guys think it's easy? Who says it's really easy? Show me who thinks it's really easy. Tell me who says it's like the easiest thing. I just want to prove somebody wrong. It's clearly uneasy. Some people say friendly. No, it's uneasy. It's uneasy. How about this one? Despondent, relieved. He doesn't look relieved. Shy, excited. You need to know vocabulary for this one. This one's super easy. All right, how about this one? Annoyed, hostile, horrified, or preoccupied? This is tricky because there's sort of like all negative emotions here. Oh yeah, this is a hard one. Oh yeah, we should see if ChatGPT can get these. You're right. You're not gonna get them all right. Yeah, this one's preoccupied. So anyway, someone with autism gets all of these wrong. They have no clue. They're getting like random score, 25%. So this is sort of the RMET test. So let's get back to communication. So people who are mute, I'm not going to pantomime the way an autistic person speaks sometimes, but I think you've probably heard it before. It's not always clear communication. There's sort of just a difficulty with language and words. And, if you can talk like me, like, just blab on about something, you don't have autism. Period, the end. You're done. All three are gone. This is a spectrum of symptoms that you have to be on, all three. Otherwise, you're not fitting the disease. You can be antisocial, right? You could have tons of diseases have this problem. It does not have to do necessarily with autism. You have to have all three. You cannot be a blabbermouth or a great public speaker and have autism because you're missing this canonical part of the spectrum. That's like saying, well, I've got the red and I've got the green, so I'm the rainbow. Well, no, you need the yellow, you need the orange, you need the blue. All right, the third one is like pathognomonic. It's a great word if you don't know it. Pathognomonic. Now, my whole point of this is that it's also pronounced pathognome. Pathognomonic, like underpants gnome. There's a little gnome guy here. So pathognomonic means like it is exactly diagnostic for this disease. Now, there's nothing pathognomonic for this disease. That's the whole point of this video, other than all three of these, right? But the third one is repetitive behaviors or stereotyped behaviors. And the most pathognomonic one of these, so to speak, is hand flapping. So if you've ever seen hand flapping, which kind of looks like this, that's fairly, um, you know, uh, clear. If you ever watch Rain Man and you see the repetitive, uh, sort of speaking, the if I was sitting here saying cassava, 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 cassava is a short, it's a short. That's the type of thing you would expect from an autistic patient, someone who's on the autism spectrum routine. So again, repetitive routines, something like somebody cleaning their hands 25 times in a row. But again, that's an OCD type behavior too. So you need to match all of these. So you could be OCD, you could have anxiety, and you will have some of these repetitive behaviors. Um, so restricted interests. People with autism really like trains often. They play with trains. You have to have all three. It's really important. You can't just be a normal person and say, well, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that. It's pretty deep, and pretty important. The interesting thing about the average IQ of autism patients, it's also important here. It's roughly 85, maybe 90, 85 to 90. So people with autism, um, they have serious intellectual disability. Serious intellectual disability. They cannot do the things that you and I can do. Um, it's also important to understand that people with autism have very high unemployment. They have very difficult time, getting employed. So, and now again, the average IQ is 100. Some of us in this chat are a little higher, but some of us are not. And so another really big factor is we know unemployment rates 4%. Does anybody know if that's U1 or U0? U3, U2? But let's say the unemployment rate's 4%. What's the unemployment rate for autism? 76% one study, 90% another study. So if you have a job, you can basically probably can't get diagnosed here. So certainly if you have a high achieving job. So, this is what autism is all about. When you misgender me, I get really mad. When you misdiagnose me, I get even more mad. So stop doing those things, and I hope you learned something today. Okay, there you clip clip it, cut it, cut it. Yeah, there's people who are autistic that haven't spoken a word for like 3 years. That's, I mean, it sounds crazy, I know, but that's autism. Asperger's was removed from the DSM. It's been replaced with high functioning autism, which is just this cop out of like, okay, everything I just drew except make it broader by taking some things away. Uh, I think we look, human nature is we want to categorize stuff. Like that is a huge part of human nature. You see me do it all day, right? And the word neuroatypical comes up, and I think we want to we give names to things we don't understand. No, I don't think Barron is autist. I think a lot of kids being brought up today, younger people, they're different. They're a little different. They're not. Every generation's a little different.